Coming up next week, there's going to be a hands-on training workshop. It's going to be at the Cardi Berry Farm, Dry Fork, Virginia. And that'll be April 25th through the 27th. It's our 3-day storm sawing workshop. If you're interested in it, send an info@forestapps.com email and we'll answer any questions that you have and show you how to get signed up for it. Or you can go directly to our e-store and be able to sign up on that. And you can locate that off of our website at www.forestapps.com. But that 3-day program, we just finished one a couple weeks ago in Kingston, Georgia. Went very well. I had people from all over the country. We've got several coming in. That's going to be our legacy instructors for this particular weekend. And also a couple of people have already signed up. We have some openings, about 3 or 4 openings still left. So if you're interested, send me a info@forestapps.com email and we'll get you signed up on that. Cost is $8.50 per person. There is lodging available. And so it's going to be at Danville, Virginia, is where we'll be starting off and then moving up to the Berry Farm for the hands-on portions. But that's going to be April the 25th through the 27th. And then looking at Basic Chainsaw 2-hour, and that's a certificate program. It's going to be online. It's just going over some basics of chainsaw operation, looking at the PPE, what's necessary, looking at reactive forces, a little bit on sharpening and different tools available, as well as looking planning processes on standing trees as well as horizontal. And that's about 2 hours, going to be April the 22nd. And that's going to be 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Cost is $25 per person. And I've had 3 or 4 of these now. They will go very, very well. A lot of interest in them. And so you can contact me at info@forestapps.com. I'll be glad to get you information you need to get registered on that. Also can register at our e-store. And for groups, if you have a church group or a disaster volunteer group, or you have a tree company or logging company and you have several employees, if you'd like a group discount, you can contact me and discuss that at info@forestapps.com. That's April 22nd, 7 to 9 p.m. Also available is a saw chain clinic, and that's going to be coming up in May the 13th, 7 to 8 p.m. I have down about an hour there. The last one went about 2, but that's also available. And you can get information at info@forestapps.com, and also group discounts available for that. That's May the 13th, 7 to 8 p.m., discussing different saw chain types and also different sharpening devices, and discussing pitches and gauges and different things that you need to make sure you've got the right saw chain for your piece of equipment, and also how to maintain it properly. And then also we do have available live consultation on different topics. If you have different issues with your crews or volunteer groups or yourself, and you're looking for information about different things from planning processes to different types of techniques, you can reach me at info@forestapps.com, and we have that available on a per call basis. So you can get in touch with me on that. Also, our e-store is available. I have several things on there that you might want to take a look at, and you can go to that off of our website at www.forestapps.com. So that's several things that's happening here in the next few weeks, and hopefully you find one of those that fits in your schedule. We'd love to see you at the next one coming up at Dry Fork, Virginia, which will be starting off in Danville, Virginia on April 25th through 27th. And the others, we have a couple more weeks to get information out on that. But the chat's going to be starting at 8 p.m. shortly. And so we have about another 35 minutes, and we'll be kicking that off. And tonight is open chat, discussing any comments or questions that you might have on chainsaw applications and use. And so hope you hang around and join us for that particular chat. Well, hello and welcome to Thursday Night Saws. How are y'all doing tonight? Hey, Chris.
Hey, brother.
Sound good? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you've been working around the house this week, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yep. Getting ready for the big weekend coming up.
Yeah, I made an announcement just a little while ago, and we're looking forward to the 25th through the 27th. Got a good group coming in,
Yeah,
and I've got a couple more I'm talking to. May get signed up, so we're looking
cool.
forward to having a good group up there.
Awesome.
Yeah. And what you've been working on some trees this week?
Yeah, I'm doing two takedowns tomorrow for a customer. Big pin oak, probably 40 inches, and then another one that's really close to the house and the pool. So I have to section it all down, climb. Should be fun.
You can float that one across to the other side to load it, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I got David Thompson coming tomorrow, so I'm gonna work him hard. He's bringing his grandson, so we need some young blood to do a lot of limb dragging. So looking forward to that.
Well, he's a big guy, so he can
Oh yeah,
carry some stuff, can't he?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just trying to get this other picture there to come up. But tell us a little bit about what you got planned for next week.
Well, we're gonna got legacy trainers coming in from all over the country, which is cool. Looking forward to hanging out with some saw guys and you and Laura. And then I've got a really nice site, about 60 acres of standing pines. So go through all of our classroom stuff and then get out and put some trees on the ground. Should be a good time.
So this is the 3-day storm sawing workshop. So what all you going to be covering in that?
Man, we're gonna cover PPE, cover the PPE really well, your plan, directional felling, bucking and limbing. Um, let's see, sharpening, RDT stuff with the saws. A whole lot of stuff gets covered in this 3 days.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, we had a good one over in Kingston, Georgia, a week before last. David did it. I've been putting up some different videos off of that one, but it went over very very well. We had some folks from Colorado and North Carolina, from uh, Michigan area,
Wow.
and I think Mississippi. So we had guys kind of scattered all over. But one young lady from North Carolina with a land management group. She did a really good job.
Hmm.
So it's been a good one.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of interesting things have you had in the trees this week? Anything in particular?
Um, Man, this week it's just I've been in the office more than anything, but we were in Ohio. We had a lot of stuff in twists and binds. I just got back from there, and then prior to that, we were in Texas dealing with some burn trees, which is a whole nother animal to tackle. So I had to get some wisdom from you. Had some pines that were burned, but not not burned all the way to the top. So it was cool to be able to tell the homeowner that, hey, these trees are going to make it. We
Hmm.
had some out that were scorched pretty bad, burned all the way to the top. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. And
So on the burn trees, I think I saw some videos from the area. So it was a pretty hot fire. There were some high winds and stuff that week.
yeah, yeah, the fire was moving 60 miles an hour, which is crazy. I couldn't imagine. Then over 1 million acres burned. So pretty devastating. But out in the Texas Panhandle, there's just big ranches, not a lot of homes. So out of 1 million acres, a little over 300 homes burned. So
Hmm.
which is nuts.
Yeah. So that whole area got very hot.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we were doing demos more than anything. We took care of some trees, but a lot of full demos with the homes. All the wood burned, but they'd still have brick and bathtubs and toilets and things of that nature. So I had the excavators and skid steers and shove the rest of that stuff out to the curb so it could be cleaned up and they can start putting their lives back together.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's I guess that's fire and then floods about the toughest ones, isn't it? I mean, you can usually tarp over something when you have some damage to the house as long as nobody was hurt. But then when you've got the water and the burn, it creates some different smells and cleanups and
Oh yeah,
the molds and all that kinds of things. So it's you guys have your work cut out for you, don't you?
yeah, yeah. Floods are the worst, but you get more witnessing opportunities. When we're running a saw with earmuffs on, it's kind of hard to tell somebody about the Lord. I love running saws, but when you're in somebody's house and you're taking all their clothes out of their cabinets, out of their closet and their dresser, it gets pretty real. Spend 2 or 3 days with somebody cutting the drywall out of their house and taking the furniture out. Have a lot of opportunity to share with them. So they both
Yeah,
have.
I've been to couple trips over the years, some mission trips that it, it it's always a more blessing for you than it is for them in a lot of cases to be able
Oh,
to get to know the families and the people there involved.
oh yeah, yeah. And everywhere's people are kind everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. We were in Ohio. People are so thankful and just really cool people. And then out in Texas, and we were in Florida last year for a long time. There's just good people everywhere. When you get out, you look at the news, everything's negative, but when you get out on the streets, it's different.
Hmm. I've noticed some real positive stuff. A couple of posts from God's Pit Crew, and Randy and them have put on a little bit of rebuilds on some property. Tell me about that.
Yeah, yeah. We just finished building a house. This is the third house, I think, in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. So we actually built the house for a pastor. So we've been going out and building houses, and the pastor never mentioned that his home was completely destroyed and his vehicles, and never asked for help. He's just working hard to help his community. But we heard through the grapevine that his home was destroyed. So crew went out and built him a new house in 11 days from just a concrete slab to fully furnished in 11 days, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah, I saw
their home.
some of the pictures. It's a pretty nice place too.
Oh yeah, yeah. We built a really quality home. We built it in 11 days, but it's not thrown together. We pre-frame it in our warehouse. Really nice furnishings, cabinets, and yeah, really nice home. Anybody be proud to own it.
Yeah, that's helping some families out there for sure.
Yeah,
I got some more pictures this week.
awesome.
And, this came in. You remember John Tidwell?
Yeah,
Yeah, he sent some pictures here on an oak tree that had broken over, and it pretty good size there. And that's a picture from the end of it there, and then you can see
mm,
it was quite jacked up.
yeah.
And he tried some of what we were talking about last week, and he talked like it worked pretty good. He basically put a notch in the top and undercut, but it was broken over enough to where it didn't lift back with him. So he ended up going down, and he got pinched in here a little bit. I told him the way to maybe be able to handle that is to offset over to the right or the left a little bit and cut the hinge off there from the top. Because
Mm,
if you don't cut the hinge off, then it's not going to grab your saw your bar, your chain or bar. But
yeah,
if you cut the hinge off, then it has the back pressure potential. So that the hinge really helps to keep the back pressure out of the picture there for sure.
yeah, definitely.
But they lowered that one down working from that end, went up, started taking the limbs off. Still got some vertical stuff there, but took them off as they go, and lowered that thing all the way down.
That's cool.
So it does work, huh?
Oh yeah.
Because that one had some elevation. If you think about it, if you come out there from the other end, I don't have a picture. I don't think coming from the. You can kind of see how tall it is. If you were to come in from this direction, you've got all of those limbs up over your head. And even if you try to take a pole saw out here and section it up, you've got stuff dropping. So it makes it nice then when you come here to their attachment points and more or less notch and hinge, because everybody thinks about straight cuts, but notching and hinging, you can lower that stuff down. Even if you have to go side to side, you can lower that down like it's on tripods, and then take
Hmm.
more trunk section off as you go forward. And I think that's kind of what they ended up with here.
Yeah.
Just kept lowering it down, so it worked pretty good.
Slow that process down too. Anytime I can control it and slow it down where it's not just breaking and taking off, I can make it go down slow. That gives me time to react,
Hmm.
which I love.
Yeah, I think that's something. I did a video this week that David did from the class a couple of weeks ago. That was talking about utilizing a bore cut, and he set up a little competition for the guys and gals, and basically very precisely went through, and he said a little bit different than what I usually do it, and it worked pretty good. He took the stump and sliced down both sides, leaving about 4 3/4 to 5 inches, a strip of wood all the way through, and it was almost probably 18-inch long, so 20-inch bar went all the way through,
Hmm.
and they had to stay between those two verticals. And it's kind of like we did when we first started the bore cut competitions with game of logging. We just had two marks coming down, and they had to put it between the two marks without it kicking out. And David, when he flattened off both sides, they had to go all the way back through it without it cutting through the side fibers. And
Hmm.
everybody did it the first time. It worked really well. But then he went on to use it on most of the trees that the participants were cutting, and it worked really good. So I put together a video. I think one of the biggest advantages of the bore cut, and most of the time that in the class we'd put a wedge in just about every tree. It's not necessary if you had forward lean. We had two or three of them with forward lean that still put a wedge in there, but then released it. But whether you've got a back leaner, it gives you a place to put the wedge, and then also if it's a forward leaner, you release from the back. And if the wind were to blow or something, which it was breezy that day, I think that's the reason why he had everybody put a wedge in there. But you can be able to keep it from setting on your saw. And then once it does go forward, you're out of there. You don't have to be there trying to set up your hinge, control everything while the tree is moving. And I think that's a big plus. And because we've talked about before, the number one injury out there in felling trees and even working storm stuff is probably going to be struck bys in most cases. Something falls out, a limb comes loose, a tree goes the wrong way, whatever it might be. And so it's something to where the ability to maximize your escape, and so that was the process that I put together in the video. Is the bore cut gives you so much time to get out into your escape route, and you can get back 15 to 20 feet usually in most cases. And you got to watch the stuff around it though too. There's no doubt a lot of people forget about that. You see that limb hanging up in there or dead one hanging or something, and you say, oh, I got to watch out for that, and people are looking and looking and looking. But the biggest thing is to get out of there and reduce your exposure time. And so to do that the bore cut gives you a lot of opportunities to get out of the way. And it's really cool when you see how setting the hinge up also and we usually think about 10% that you use. it gives you the ability to cut down a lot of damage. So if you're logging or tree work and you're going to be selling the logs, it stops all the pulled fibers and splits. And so you don't have any barber chairs, you don't have any splits and pulled fibers. It's going to give a loss of value. So it's so important to think through all the positives of a bore cut. And so one of the biggest things is getting yourself out of there. You don't have to be there trying to steer the tree or run from anything. It's very well planned and then executed. So what do you think? What kind of trees do we have for next week?
Most of them are pines, but we also have some poplars. There's a little bit of oaks kind of strung through there, but he wants to get rid of the pines. A lot of the pines have some beetle, had some damage by beetles, and he's trying to get rid of those and let the oaks grow.
Okay, so kind of a stand improvement.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and they're
what kind of diameters?
anywhere from 10 inches to about probably 16 inches or so. So
Okay.
good trees, and some of them are heavy leaning because
Uh-huh.
he's got some fields, so the pines are working their way trying to get to that sunlight, so they've been over pretty hard. So it's gonna be some fun. Could be some fun trees to deal with. Um, I've done some training out there before, and what I really, you have a forward leaner, but when you use that bore cut and the open face notch, you can aim your tree, even though it's leaning forward, it's going to fall that way, but you can aim it so it doesn't hit something else. Hit an oak and tear it up, or a good healthy tree. So it's gonna be fun.
I see that a lot. A lot of people don't consider that residual site damage, and
Yeah.
that was a friend up in Pennsylvania. He had told me one time. He said, I've until I started doing directional felling correctly, I damaged a lot more of the residual site. He said about 10 years ago, I did a thinning for a customer, and he went in there and cut a lot of nice hardwoods and stuff out. And he said, I cleaned a lot of the stumps and tried to be as good as I could as far as skidder work and stuff. But he said, I went back in there just a few weeks ago and found out I damaged a lot of those trees that were
Mm,
left and grew bigger, bumping against the roots and really messing up the lower portions of the tree. And
yeah.
sometimes topping them and this kind of thing. He cleaned up most of that as he did it before if there was any breakage, but more or less he said I went back in there thinking I was going to really make some money off of this particular sale, and he said I got in there and found out I had damaged a lot more than necessary. And that's one of the big things when you look at residual site damage is to take and limit that as much as you can. And that's true not only in logging, very true in tree care. And
Oh yeah.
had a had a crew here, and I didn't know whether I was going to be late tonight. Our power went off about 4:30, and tree crew doing some stuff for the power company kind of had one get away from them a little bit,
I got
and so it took out the power lines around here. Finally came back on about 7:30, so I was
uh,
I was pleased that I could able to get back here and get things started up. But it went off about 4:30.
oh man.
Yeah, I started to go out and get pictures, but I know those guys were feeling pretty bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
I'm
that's
sure.
true. If you don't watch where things are going, even just a limb or whatever, you can hit something that you don't expect to hit, and that's an important one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Illinois last week, doing the training up there, and most of those guys, what they do is get rid of invasive trees
Hmm.
and around the parks and stuff, and I really got their attention when we got out and started doing the hands-on part, because if they're trying to get rid of invasive trees, it's good that they don't damage the good trees.
Hmm.
So they had never thought through, like, you can aim these things anywhere you want to. And I had to mess around with some of that, 4 or 5 foot of side lean. You can make it go where you want it to go, aim it. The whole go through the whole process and the plan, and they were amazed that they could they could aim those trees and miss the other trees. So it was cool. And you're not getting hung up and all that stuff. Your day goes a whole lot better when you're not dealing with that.
Well, that's the whole, like I say, that's the reason for directional felling is
Yeah.
if you see that there's going to be a limb in this canopy and that canopy is going to touch each other, if you look at it and 99% of the time you can steer it away from it,
Oh yeah.
or at least try to center the tree between objects. I did that with the U.S. Forest Service back in the I guess the early 90s, a guy named Penn Peters, and we went up to Parson, West Virginia to the U.S. Forest Service experimental forest. He wanted to see what we could do on steep terrain with heavy leaners and see how well we could plan them and see that the hinge worked. And he had some of them that he set up. He did a whole booklet on this thing and he did a computer program and some different things. He was out of Washington and more or less we got up there and it was cold, it was icy, and he kept slipping and sliding. I had caulk boots on, and I got another pair out of the truck. He had similar size feet, so I fixed him up where he wasn't flipping upside down. But we cut, I think it was about 12 trees, and they were from anywhere from 2 foot of side lean to about 17 foot. Now he measured from the center of the canopies over, and so that's basically how we measure too. But
Hmm.
he would check that. So one or two of them had 12 to 17 feet, best I remember, and more or less we were pretty much on target with most all of them. There was a
Wow.
couple that had some bad butts, that were a little bit rotted, that we lost a little bit, but they all were able to clear the other because his main thing of this particular thing that he was doing, this study, was to see could you utilize measure side lean, which is height measure, side lean, and hinges and notches to cut down on residual damage, and also on if a limb hit another canopy, it throws it back sometimes or most of the time towards the operator at the stump. And
Hmm.
so to be able to look at that ahead of time and know that you could do it makes a huge difference in reducing struck by injuries, and that's what it was all about. And so it's quite interesting. But let's see here. I got a couple of people. Let's see. Here's Warren. Let's see what he says. Riding in a truck right now, coming back from Georgia Arborist Association workshop. I'm here in spirit, so he's he's head back home. And then Brian Ellis, he said, listening on Facebook tonight. Great info as always. Laura said, yeah, about took out our internet. So, and then let's see, Ashford Jenkins, can you put the Zoom link in here? Yep, yeah, I can. Let's see here. Where is my? I will add the Zoom link in. Let's see, what are you on? You're on YouTube. And well, that didn't work because I got it on the other. I can just enter it in here, I guess. Keep talking, Chris.
Oh man, it's always fun trying to work all that stuff out.
Yeah, I think I got it. I can copy it over there now.
I got a pair of chaps I want you to look at when you're in town. Did the demonstration with them, and no apparent damage,
Uh-huh.
and they didn't slow it down very much. It's the first time that's ever happened. Didn't choke the saw out.
What saw was it?
It was a MS 261,
Uh-huh.
just bone stock.
So you had a 325 pitch chain.
It had a no. I guess it is a slightly modified. I run 3/8 on the 261s just because I've switched the sprockets out on them so everything in my trailer runs the same chain.
Uh-huh.
Makes sharpening the sharpening process a lot faster with everybody. But I'll show them to you. Like I said, I've done this demonstration probably 50 times with chaps. Every time it chokes it right out. Um, the tag has gone off of them, so you'll probably look at them and know what manufacturer they were. But tag's gone. But yeah, I was shocked when I did the presentation. It cut into the pine tree pretty good. Probably went in about an inch straight out the back. Never cut the saw off.
What color were they?
Orange.
But you don't know what.
I don't know. I kept them. I kept them. I want you to look at them. That's scary.
Yeah. A couple things, and we've talked about before is how clean were they?
They
And
they
go ahead.
they weren't bad. I mean, they weren't spotless, brand new, but they weren't soaked in oil. The pads looked good. I looked after it cut all the way through. I looked at the pads; they weren't soaked in oil. Um, I mean, all in all, I would have trusted them. The reason I cut them is they had a burn mark on one of the legs just from somebody getting a muffler against it.
Uh-huh.
So if any of them have any kind of damage, I use them for demos. But um, maybe they were made on a Friday in the factory at 4:55. I don't know what happened
Uh-huh. Did you go across them or down vertical more?
across them.
Hmm.
I strapped them to a tree just like like it was someone's leg, and ran the saw wide open and eased the saw in, and it cut straight. I had about a 6-inch cut on the front,
Hmm.
straight through the pad, 6-inch cut on the back, through the bark and into the pine tree.
Was the material that it pulled out orange or white? Yellow,
White,
white. Hmm.
yeah. It wrapped around the sprocket. It was in the sprocket, but it didn't choke it out.
Yeah. Well, I think I've had several, actually four questions this week on battery saws, or electric saws and chaps. And I went back through and just Googled it and came across as many of the videos that's been done with different units. I know I with a power company in Alabama, a couple of power companies. I've tried the Makita, the Husqvarna, and the um, what's the other industrial one? I'll think of it in a minute, but it starts with an M. But Milwaukee, and so none of those on the chaps that we had cut through. And I've done, I don't know, probably six different times or so. And I keep getting the questions about. It seems like everybody that talks about a battery saw is kind of like that's one of the negatives why you don't need to buy one is because of leg protection doesn't work with it. But first thing I always say is that chaps are not designed to be cut proof. I don't care whose they are.
Yeah.
You can have them twist. You can have vertical that's not going to do as much. It could be wet. It could be oily or matted down. They could be separated, around the knee. That kinds of stuff from age, which that doesn't play that big a part, but it could. And then you start thinking about. Most of the comments from the electric saws, it went back to the E series that Steel had, E10, E15, I think it was, and then there was a E series Husqvarna has, and those were corded units. And what it is, they had larger armatures, and they didn't slow down much. So
Hmm.
it really, because there's not a lot of there's not a centrifugal drive system there. There's nothing that starts to slip. It's just a direct drive. And but those most of those saws were used, in mill situations and those types of things. So it's not something that is the same as in the battery saws today. First of all, the battery saws today are electronic controlled, so you have more or less a stall system in there. When it reaches a certain temperature or it reaches a certain resistance, then it stops, and that's one of the biggest, I guess you'd say, differences in people that run a gas climbing saw and an electric climbing saw is that you really have to watch your pressure on the chain, that it starts to drop down with very little pressure, or if you try to get the chain too aggressive, it drops down. And so it's something that like I say, that's one of the biggest issues that I hear people talking about. But I haven't seen any of it cut through. But going back through what I was looking at on videos of it, all of them that had new chaps that were strapped to a log stopped, except for the ones where you would see there was another small cut, or either they had them really really tight.
Yeah.
And what happens there is if you've already pulled any of that material out, then it's not there next time. It pulls all the way from the end of the garment's leg all the way up to the waist, and that's how it has to have long fibers to really stop it. Now you've got shorter fibers going sideways, but you've got long fibers the other way. So it takes a combination in that weave, and that's the reason why you have several layers there. That those pads are actually laid out in different direction on the fibers, and so it maximizes the ability for it to pull out in wads and jam the saw. If the material is deteriorated, or somebody has sewn through it, that can cause like pockets and those kinds of things. If you patch them or that kind of thing, or it's already had some stretching around the knee and it's pulled out, or it's wadded up at the base of it, it's not going to do as good a job. But in all cases, as I always say, any chaps that have a UL classification label on it or U.S. Forest Service label on it, they're better than a pair of blue jeans.
I guarantee it.
All
Yeah.
right. So people are all concerned in using it as a negative, and the biggest thing is getting people to put them on. And your first form of defense is not the chap. Your first form of defense is your stance and your operation of the chainsaw. The emergency situation is the chap, and very very few times are you going to hit that thing wide open. It's possible, and hopefully it works when it happens. But in either way, it's going to have a lesser injury than what you would have without them. And
Hmm.
so that's, I think, the important thing to kind of look through. So. And David Van Canaan says, don't wear skinny chaps. And that's true. And the best thing is that anything with UL classification is going to be it's going to be a minimum of about 15 inches at the knee around. So, and they're also asymmetric. So they call that, it moves to the inside of your right leg and the outside of your left leg. So if the chainsaw hits it, they have some rotation room there. And that's kind of the idea there, to keep it from cutting out. And so that's kind of the thing there. So I was looking back. I placed the Ashford. I placed the link on there if you want to try to get on. It's 834428333748, and then the passcode is 477876. So you just come into Zoom and enter in those numbers to join the meeting. Yeah, and so I think too. There are some differences in chain speed, which the 261, 271 shouldn't be coming into that. It would be changed a little bit different with the chain, but usually probably the 325 pitch is more accessible to go through than the 3/8.
Hmm.
I find the larger chain seems to grab more and jam quicker, but
Yeah.
that's all different. It's according to the situation, but it has a lot to do with the side cover clearances. That can play a factor. The 325 sprocket is the chain is closer together, so if it gets in the sprocket area, you don't have the torque ability that a larger 375 or a 404 would have. So that could play a factor there. It could limit the chances a little bit. But the saw is not tested to chaps.
No.
And the pads are actually tested. Is all that really goes in for the test in the UL classification. So the ASTM standard. So and the Forest Service too. So the outer materials sometimes make a little bit of difference in their ability. And so if it's like a lightweight denier is different than a heavier cordura as far as the other. And then the Forest Service is enveloped on both sides with the cordura. So that's for fire retardancy. And so there's some differences in the chaps. Plus, most that you see, like with steel and some of the Husqvarna models are actually meeting the ISO standard, which is the international standard. It's a higher chain speed resistance than what you have with the U.S. Standard. So that's something to kind of consider. But I mean that shouldn't be a deterrent from anything. I mean, you definitely hope that and pray that it doesn't go through them, but it is something to where that's something that they're not designed necessarily to be totally cut proof. They do resist cut through in the test, but the test is not a real world situation. You'd have to say it's a devised system to level out the playing field of manufacturing so that you know as a consumer that you're getting something to a certain level. And but so far on the battery saws, I haven't seen a lot of issue there. In most cases, every one of them that I have been around trying, it worked pretty well. And
Oh yeah.
I looked at, I guess 6 or 8 yesterday. I looked at 6 or 8 different videos, and the only couple that I saw where people say, "Oh, it won't stop." Just look at the chap that's on the log. It's already got fibers pulled, and or either it loosened up and wrapped, pulled. A couple of them that I saw. But the other thing too is that your leg is a little bit more padded than a 12-inch oak log that they're strapping that across, and the test pads that they're checked with, they have a foam-like material to simulate. So when you're on a hard surface, once it hits, that's kind of like your knee is a little bit more susceptible than your thigh or your shin, because if you're bent down and your knee is stretched the fibers tight around your knee, then you have a smaller area for the chain to start penetrating. Whereas if you've got a softer base under it, it tends to, with the pressure, it levels out and more teeth grab at one time. Like we talk about with the saw getting pinched in a kerf. If you use the tip, you're probably going to stick 2 teeth. But if you lay the whole bar across that, you're probably going to have 10 teeth stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same situation if you're looking at how that chap is around the radius of a log. It's something that it can play an effect in whether it cuts through or doesn't in some cases. So that's something to kind of think about. One other thing, Chris, I was going to tell you, I talked to an interested gentleman. I'm going to be meeting with him tomorrow afternoon, and he heads up a group that's working in North Carolina and through, I guess, probably North Georgia also. They have a crew that is working on rivers, kayak rivers and trout streams and those kinds of things. They're going in and wading in there and taking out blowdowns and treetops and things. This is something that he's actually I haven't spoken to him yet, but looking at his information, he's retired and started doing this, and he's got 4 or 5 people that are kind of helping, I guess, kind of like a kayak club or whatever. And so he's got this team, and they're going in and working on this stuff, and on Forest Service properties and different land management areas.
Huh.
And so he's looking for some training. He's used chainsaw for about 40 years, but his other people haven't. So he's looking at some training to be able to get all of his people up to a level. And naturally, that's some of the toughest ways. I've done some training in the past with the Corps of Engineers, and most of them either working on lakesides or on actual barge and john boat type situations, and TVA also on the lake areas. It's tough when you're wading in water and trying to get these things cleaned out. But
Yeah.
he's got a lot of experience with us. I'm looking forward to chatting with him tomorrow and see what we can come up with for putting together a little training program for his group.
Yeah.
I'll
That's
talk to him about maybe coming up next week if he has the ability. But he's a retired General Motors, I guess, engineer and transmissions. Quite
yeah.
an
That
awesome gentleman.
that sounds like fun. And I kayak. I used to kayak a lot. I don't kayak nearly as much, but man, that's much appreciated. That's a dangerous situation when you're going through and rivers moving fast and you get to a blown down oak in the water. That's a dangerous spot to be in.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is slippery rocks too.
Yeah.
I guess he's using some waders and stuff, and I don't know. I'll check with him tomorrow, but I imagine the trout fishing felt bottom boots or whatever, trying to get traction because that's about the only thing that gives you any traction in that stuff. And really can't work out of the boat necessarily, and they are using battery saws.
Hmm.
That was one of the discussions on the chaps and battery saws. So, but it's something where I'm meeting with him tomorrow, so I'll know more about
Yeah.
it. So,
I look forward to hearing about that. That's cool.
yeah, it'll be about 2 o'clock if you wanted to join in. I can send you a link. But if you're busy, don't worry. You got trees to work on.
I
I'll
do
let
have
you know
trees to work on.
when we get finished with our discussions,
Yeah.
because you might be a chosen one.
That sounds like fun.
But let's see any other questions. I don't know what happened to Ashford. That Ashford, I mounted that back up. So if you see it, you can enter that or let me know if it didn't work or whatever. But that should have got you in there. Well, we got a few more minutes here. But any yeah, I'm interested in taking a look at those chaps,
Yeah.
and we'll see on that.
Yep. I spent some time at Arbor Fest, I guess 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That new battery saw Husqvarna's got with the clutch, that is impressive.
Well,
It was really neat.
that's what I was going to say too. Is that I did a little video thing on it. David got one, and Robert actually cut with one a couple weekends ago at a dealer show, and then there's a lot of people they put out demonstrators with some of the arborists and stuff. But that's one issue that's going to solve the chap issue,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
that's the main reason why the larger gas saws are stopped by leg protection, is because of the centrifugal clutch. Is
Hmm.
that as soon as it gets resistance, it does start to slip and chain speed slows. And the other thing, I've been trying to really look at engineering wise why or how that clutch would be a big advantage on electric, but it's kind of like my Tesla is that you got direct power immediately, but it would just kill the motor if you had a heavy load, like you've got a 4,000 pound car that it's got to start turning. So the actual transmissions give it the ability to accelerate and change. So that's what this clutch would do,
Hmm.
is that you've got RPM goes up immediately, because there's no load on the chain. And then as you start to get the RPM up on the engine the motor shaft, then it starts to grab the chain and goes. So I've been looking at the videos of it, and it does appear that it works just like a gas powered saw. And so the small ones in the same size range and stuff, as you go into it, you really have to, you hit the gas and go into it, or hit the electric and go into it, and it starts to bog immediately. But what this does is it keeps the RPM up, so you're able to kind of regulate the amount of pressure and how fast you're cutting and what type of wood fiber.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a real neat package.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
plus you've got a removable rim sprocket on that. So, and 325 pitch, the low profile 325 pitch chain, and so very very fast cutting. I put a video on there. Robert he took, and it's a little blurry, but you can still see. I mean it bore cuts very well. He put a lot of pressure onto it, and he said I couldn't tell the difference in it and the gas saw.
Yeah.
And so he said he ordered one. So I guess that's proof that a tight rascal ordered one. It's good.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to order one for my daughter. She helps me with the trees. She has a real issue trying to start saws.
Hmm.
Just she, she really struggles. She does great once the saw is running. I'll have to start it for her husband starts it for her. But that was the big reason I wanted to try it out there, because the frustrating part with all the other battery saws is when it starts to bog down, it cuts off.
Hmm.
Then you got to take it out, start the whole process over. But she played with that Husqvarna at Arborfest, and like you said, if it starts to bog down, you could just ease up a little bit, get your speed back up, and go back in, and it's not shutting off like all the rest of them. So
Hmm. Hmm.
should be good.
Well, I noticed that, and I was going to check it again because it's been a few months since I used it. But my pole saw, battery pole saw, I believe it has a clutch and a shaft going up to the gear head.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure because it slipped out one time, and I remember having to readjust it. So it drives from the bottom of a shaft up to the top, and it's expandable. And I noticed it it was very easy to keep the speed up, as you cut versus the battery handheld saw. And so I think that they have a clutch on that one. I'm going to recheck and make sure, but um, it's the steel 135A.
Yeah, yeah, I've got one of those too. They're worth their weight in gold. Pole sawing is just so rough on your body, all that weight, but the battery is man, I love my battery pole saw.
Yeah. Well, I found it to be a little heavy, but it's got what 13 foot of reach. So I
Yeah,
basically, and it's got a pretty good size handle on the back side of it, which you use as a stand. You can set it right on the ground and still be able to cut, enough high enough to be able to get a truck clearance or whatever. And that's what I needed for the driveway. But it was
yeah,
something that, and I've got a couple extra batteries if anybody needs one, because I ordered a 300A before I got sick, so I did get that, but I got the batteries and they were kind of back ordered. But I got two 500 series batteries if you know of anybody. But anyway, it's something that I think that's a big difference in keeping that RPM up. That motor can go up immediately without any load,
yeah,
and as you start to add the load to it, the clutch gives you some slippage there. And so if you were to come into a pair of chaps, same thing as a battery saw, it's gonna bind up a lot better. So that's the best of both worlds.
oh yeah.
So
Hey, I'll buy the batteries off of you. Bring them with you to Virginia.
the two 500s,
Yeah,
cool. I will
yep,
do that. I'll get them out of the building in the morning.
yep, no problem.
Yeah, I'll make you a deal.
All right, I like deal.
Because those 500s, they last a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah, actually I've got three. Cause I've got a 300 and a 500 for my pole saw and stuff too. So I got two extra 500s. Let's see here if there's any other. No, I don't see any other questions, Chris.
Cool.
But we've had some pretty good comments and stuff coming back in over the past couple of weeks, and I've answered most of them. But I just had another one here from David Van Kynen. Didn't even think about a battery pulsar, reverted to a 20-foot manual kamikaze. Awesome and lightweight for my apps. Didn't even think about it. Oh, okay. So he didn't think about getting a battery pulsar. He went back to a 20-foot manual, but it's lightweight, so I think it's abs instead of apps.
Yeah,
But I know that I've got a manual one too, and it does work on your arms
it
there.
does. Works on everything you got.
Yeah,
The
and I tell you, when a lot of times I see guys going, well, we don't use cities and towns, we don't use pole saws, and I mean any chainsaws anymore. We've gone to pole saws for most of our career, which it fits 80% of their stuff, unless they've got something big across the road. But it's something to where you start to think about. People say, well, I get that pole saw, it's a lot easier. Well, gosh, that pole saw, unless you can get it vertical,
they
it's
work you to death.
it will get to your back really
Yes,
really
sir.
really
Lower
fast.
back. One
Yeah,
good thing about the batteries is it is considerably lighter than the gas ones. I love my battery pole saw,
yeah.
and no noise. You don't have that, loud muffler blowing there right by your face.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
pulsars aren't quiet. Even the battery ones, I was checking, they're 95, 96 decibels.
Oh,
So I
wow.
mean, you still have a lot of noise off the bar and chain and the shaft, but it's a lot less than you have with the gas, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And plus the tones on some of them are really very bassy, and that not only has a noise factor, but it also has a vibration factor. So,
Mhm.
but it's that's one thing about the battery. It's very very smooth. Um, and you can feel that if you put a little bit too much aggressive chain on there. I had one of the Power Sharp bars and chains on mine, and you could feel, they're pretty aggressive, and you could feel the teeth in some situations, but it very very smooth, and no vibration in the shaft assemblies and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's pretty important as you start working with them hour after hour. So yeah, pretty good. Well, Chris, um, give us one more spiel about next weekend in case we had some late joiners. We'll
If you're
try to
if
get some
you're on
there.
yeah if you're on the fence thinking about doing this 3 day storm class changed my life, and several people that I know as well. It's going to be a lot of good fun fellowship. You're going to have some of the best chainsaw instructors in the world all in one spot, which is a once in a lifetime opportunity, really, to have the people that are going to be there in Danville. So if you're on the fence, sign up. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. You will definitely walk away with a lot of knowledge. And our big thing is we want you to be able to go home every night. So we're going to give you some skills to make sure that you're safe. My big thing is I want to go home every night, and I also want to hear my grandkids. You know, all of those things. So yeah, come check us out.
Well, very good. And that's going to be April 25th through the 27th, and starting off in Danville,
Danville.
Virginia,
Yep.
and then going up to Dry Fork.
You got it. Yeah,
And,
my daughter's going to take care of breakfast and lunch. We'll feed you good. It'll be a good time.
and you've got some lodging there also.
Yep, yep. Free lodging, um, really nice accommodations. So we'll take care of you. Give you the Southern hospitality here in the lower part of Virginia.
I had some pictures I should have dug out. I had the workout room that you had and
Oh
the
yeah,
one of the dorm areas. So,
yeah,
but
yeah. It's nice.
yeah. So anyway, you can give us a message at info@foresteps.com. We'll get the information to you, and we can go from there. But
Hmm.
it's going to be a great session next weekend.
Yeah, beautiful weather in Virginia right now too. Mid 70s.
It's going to
Nice.
be that way next week too.
Supposed to be. Yeah.
Ah, I'm not even going to bring a rain jacket then.
No, I hope not.
I'm trusting you.
All right. Sounds good.
One thing is, I wanted to tell you, I don't know if David is going to be there. His father is coming home on hospice, so
Yeah.
um, he's back home, going back up there for tomorrow, and they're going to bring him back home. But if things work out, he's going to be there. So
Good.
anyway, that's kind of it. So be prayerful with him, and we'll go from there. So Chris, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you.
if I don't talk to you before, I will see you in Danville next week. That's for sure.
Sounds good.
All
Come
right.
see me.
See you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, folks, and appreciate you dropping in tonight. And if you have any other questions, you can email them to me or drive them, put them in the comments, and we'll pick it up and try to get you an answer to it. Hopefully, you've picked up something that might be of help to you, and we'll see you next Thursday night from should be from Danville, Virginia. So it'll be a little bit limited, but we'll hopefully be able to make it. If not, the following week we'll be back for sure. So this is Tim Ard, and wishing you